Welcome to the Stone Table. This isn't a stage, it's a gathering place. Here, lifters of all kinds bring their stories. The heavy, the honest, and the hard-earned. Real voices, real weight. Shared like a good pour among friends. Recorded in Ontario, Canada, and open to lifters everywhere. Sláinte.
Before we begin today's episode, we're introducing a new tradition. From this point forward, every show will open with a short segment dedicated to the life, research, writings, and teachings of Peter Martin. Many of you know the Stones. Fewer know the man who helped preserve so many of their stories. Peter Martin traveled seeking out forgotten challenge stones, speaking with locals, learning from elders, recording names, weights, histories, and traditions that could easily have been lost with time. He understood that these were never just rocks to be lifted. They were pieces of living culture tied to land, language, community, and identity. The elders of Northeast saw the depth of that work and gave him the name Am Badak Aklashan, the old man of the stones. That title was not given for noise or status. It was given for service. It was given for respect. It was given because he carried something worth protecting. And that is why we are making this change. Because knowledge can disappear. Because traditions can be watered down. Because stones can become content while their meaning is forgotten. Because too many know the lift, but not the lineage. So in each opening, we'll share a short passage, idea, story, or teaching drawn from Peter Martin's works, writings such as Twixt the Stone and the Turf, of Stones and Strength, and of his many individual stone histories. This is our way of making sure the knowledge keeps moving. This is our way of honoring the people who preserved the path before the rest of us arrived. This is our way of remembering that strength is more than weight moved and not about world firsts and egos. It is history carried. It is culture respected. It is memory passed hand to hand. Now let's get on with today's episode. Welcome back to the Stone Table podcast. I am your host, Rebecca Innes. Today's episode is one that I've been genuinely excited about for the last few months. We've been talking about this since, I think, before Christmas. And this is a guest that sits at a rare intersection of craft, strength sport, tradition, and conservation. Today, I'm joined by David, a certified strength coach and the founder and fabricator behind Stix and Stone, a company many of you already know for their DIY training tools like kettlebells and weight plates, but who are also the creators of competition stones for some of the biggest strength events in the world, including the OSG and the Arnold. That means David isn't just building training implements. He's shaping how athletes prepare, he's shaping how competitions unfold, and in a quiet, powerful way, he's shaping how stone lifting traditions are being preserved and expanded. And as stone lifting grows and expands, something important happens. And we've seen this in some competition where natural stones used in competition become vulnerable. They face overuse and possible damage. And David's work, I think, it may not have started off like this for him, but I think it's extremely vital in the further preservation of competitive stone lifting and the stones we use within it. So without further ado, welcome to the table, David.
How's it going?
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
I usually start out with what we're drinking today. What do you have on tap?
I'm being a little boring as a Texan. I'm just having Coke Zero at this moment.
Amazing. I am not, as a Canadian, being boring. I've got two drinks on the go. I've got a Paloma, which after research, I understand is quite the popular drink in Texas. So I thought, hey, while we're here, may as well do that. And then I didn't know this, but Dr. Pepper was actually created by a Texan. a doctor to cure, I think, upset stomachs or something like that. So
Yeah.
I'm.
Waco.
Was it okay? So my Googling was correct, but that's what we have today. So thank you so much for joining us. As always, Slancha. Wow. Okay. Never had the tequila cut water, but could get to be an interesting episode, David. That's intense. Okay. So I know all of your history. I have been looking at your feed and I follow OSG and the Arnolds and all of that and seen your amazing work. But for those that don't know who you are, could you give a brief overview to the folks listening?
Well, how far back do you want to go? I've spent most of my life playing football. Got into college, got a scholarship to play football at a D1 university. Got two degrees, a master's and a bachelor's in kinesiology and strength and conditioning. Became a strength coach after that. Spent almost a decade coaching at a couple of universities here in the United States. Minor league baseball club on the East Coast, and then most recently at a really good high school district here in the Houston area. In March 2020, decided to call it quits because everything was crazy and shut down and find something new to do. So that's when this kind of became a thing. I realized I don't have a fancy weight room that I curated myself at the school that I used to work at to work out at anymore. So I created a way to work out in my backyard and pretty much ended up going viral on Instagram and had a bunch of like garage gym reviews and garage gym lab and a couple other people repost the stuff that I was making in my backyard. And I got inundated with a bunch of messages and DMs and comments like, how'd you do it? Can you ship me some of this and that? Like, we'll make a plan. Then 2 months after that kind of happened, I created a website and a 30-page PDF on how I built everything in the backyard, and then started making. Actually, I'm in my workroom where I pack all the stuff. So I created molds for plates and things to ship to people for them to create their own weight plates, dumbbells, kettlebells, and tempering rollers at home using concrete. That turned into me being kind of known as the person that can make weird stuff. And a couple of local strongman promoters in the Texas area reached out to me and said, "Hey, could you build X, Y, and Z? Could you make some awards, this and that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll give it a shot." And a promoter in Dallas, Spence, reached out because his person that was making his awards backed out on him really late, like 2 weeks before the competition. And I was like, "Yeah, I'll figure something out." So like 2 weeks later, I was bringing up 60 awards up to North Dallas, it was about 5 hour drive from here, and kind of became known as the guy that could figure out the weird stuff. So word got around, bigger competitions and promoters like Strongman Corporation and USS started reaching out for things. Got asked to do a couple things for the Arnold a couple of years ago. Stone down in South Texas made my first set of Husafels for that competition, and a bunch of the pros were there. Got to touch those and give me middle fingers for making something that was pretty and tough to do. That's where I actually got to meet a couple of the Texas guys, Austin Andrade and Nick Guardione. They were a part of the amateur side at that point, and they're now both pros about to go do the Arnold and the World's Strongest Man this year. But yeah, then shook hands and met a bunch of people there, and it kept, crazily enough, it hasn't failed yet, that I'm still building weird stuff for competitions that see what I make as worthy to use. So it's been a really weird 5-year journey so far. I'm coming up on 6 now.
I can't believe it's been 6 years, because when I first reached out to you to ask you if you wanted to be on the show, I was totally fangirling, because as a former strong woman, I was preparing to go to OSG. And so, you were doing one of the events that year that I was prepping for. It was log and stone, or sticks and stone.
That was the nickel stone replicas and the frame.
Yes, and the frame. So I was very much looking forward to that since that time, and I've known of your work since then. And it's just amazing how it has evolved, and I can't wait to go into detail about the fabrication of the stones. But I want to go back to the DIY stuff first. So you were making that, and I guess you ship out the molds to folks, and you're still doing that, I assume, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not nearly as many as I was back then, though.
Can you explain is it like concrete, or do you have to like put fillers in to make the weights the accurate weight, or is it the depth that you're using for the molds? Like, can you explain how you get the weights correct for that?
So pretty much it's a bowl or like a cake pan, and however much batter of cake you put in it, that's how heavy it's going to be. I sell a piece of lengths of pipe that you put in the center, so the bar hole will be there in the center, and then if you filled it up to like right here, it'd be a 10-pound plate, 25-pound
Oh,
plate. You
okay.
could put almost 40, 50 pounds in just the small mold for change plates if you wanted to. But yeah, it's based on the thickness you want to go. Obviously, concrete's much less dense than steel, so 1.5-inch plate of a 45 would probably be closer to 2.5 inches for a 45-pound plate in concrete. But not many people on earth that are backyard gymmers need more than 585 pounds on a bar. So if you can fit that many on the bar in concrete, maybe buy a couple steel 45s. But it was a really good way to push out a bunch of affordable ways for people to make weights at home when all the gyms and all the places that they could work out were shut down during the COVID shutdown era.
And so when was the first time you made a real, maybe not the replica stone, because I think you did, was it beer stone first that you did, or?
So the Husafel stone was the first true replica I actually
Okay.
made. I had done some Denny, like just rectangular, awkward ones for my own self to train with in my backyard years prior to this. But the Husafel was me like flying over. So the Husafel is actually a really crazy story. One of my good friends who I've been a strength coach with for like the past like decade, we traveled to a bunch of conferences for our certifications and things together every year. And we decided we wanted to go lift Icelandic stones in March 2020, which seemingly is a horrible time to start going to do anything across the world at that point. But we didn't know that leading up to 6 months training for it. We get there, and March is kind of a weird, like 50-50 chance month of like beautiful weather or horrific blizzards. And we got the latter. So as we fly in that night, just iced everything over. So we finally get over to the Husafell area, and it is frozen to the earth. Like we can't pry it up. We're thinking about getting like hot water to melt the ice underneath it, but it is stuck to the ground. And the first time I went to go see it, I never even got air under it because it was frozen to it was like on a sheet of ice. Like there was no way to even safely carry it if we ever even got it off the ground. But seeing how much smaller it was, that was where the idea came from. I've been training for it wrong, and I need to start doing better. So that idea went with me, and we ended up going to the Drip Fix and a couple other places, and we got snowed in for a couple of days, and like everything was shut down on pretty much the entire west side of Iceland, and almost missed our flight getting back. And then obviously COVID shutdowns and everything. Like the very next day, all airways were shut down for a couple of days, and then all the businesses in the U.S. started to shut down as well. But yeah, so a year later, once things started to loosen up and like travel was more able to be done, I ended up going back with my wife, and we traveled to Iceland for me to have, and our neighbor and her son for his senior trip to go see Iceland. They were generous enough to ride in the back seat with us to go do some stupid stone lifting with me and see me pick up rocks. Yeah, so I went back, and that was when I had the idea to copy the stone, to get all the measurements, every crack and crevice, and like every handhold on it, and get it measured to bring that information back to create the mold. At that point, I was already selling all the other molds that were plastic forms, so I created that same kind of form with the shape of the Husafell, and then laid plastic over it and vacuum formed it that way. The Husafell was the first. And again, just like everything else I've made and sold on my website, like the Husafell was for me. I wasn't really planning on selling any stones. I figured it's such a niche market anyway, because you have to be in the strongman, you have to be in the stone lifting, you have to be willing enough to travel across the world to go pick up a rock, and then have to have the funds and the finances to be able to pay for the flights and the hotels. And so your niche gets smaller and smaller and smaller to do this one thing that I'm spending all my time to create for. And then as I was making those for myself, I talked to Gabe Pena at it was Static Monsters in 2021 or 2022, and he was at a memorial event that we had for Static Monsters for one of our mutual friends that he was coaching at the time when he died, our friend Ricky. And I was just chatting with him. He was saying, "Yeah, I hear you make cool stuff and this and that. Like, maybe we could work on something for a strongman event I'm doing called Beer Stone." I'm like, "I like beer. I like stones. What is this about?" So I was like, "Well, what if I told you I had this crazy idea that I've been working on secretly for the past couple of months?" And I told him about it. His jaw hit the floor. He's like, "We're going to talk about this." So that's how I got in with Strongman Corporation, was through Gabe Pena at Beer Stone, and then the rest kind of snowballed from there.
That's incredible. Okay, let's go back to Husafel for a minute though. So you went over the second time. You'd been training leading up to that. How were you training leading up to that moment to lift? What were
So
you
for the
using?
second time,
Yes.
I was still using the steel coffin style. I actually had poured some more rounded off, like hexagonal-ish stones to kind of the shape. And every strongman seen the DIY, like old school,
Yeah.
like cut your boards at these degrees and this angle to make a form on a piece of plywood and then just dump concrete in it. I made
Yeah.
3 or 4 of those and was training with those, but I was purposely not T-Rexing it because when I was trying to pick the stone the first time when it was frozen, I was like, there's no angle to pick it. So I started kind of setting the stone on my forearms here instead of hooking it on the front. So I was coming almost like I'm 6.5 feet tall, so I can kind of do this on a lot of things. So I was kind of going here instead of tucking my hands underneath, and like pretty much taking the full weight on my chest and my forearms so that I wouldn't try and go to that T-Rex position the second time. Again, I had no idea about this lever lifts that
Yeah.
everyone and their mother are doing these days. So I was doing half lifts and picking up stones that I have in my backyard gym, like picking to lap 200 to 400 pounds, just getting reps of that to get them off the ground into the lap, and then the the bear hug way to get it up to the chest. So, which is so funny because Liam Brown just posted a video with like all 3 different lifts on it and collaborated with me. And I'm just like, I see it almost every time I open up my feed now on my page. It's like, I wish I knew about that third one because I would have saved so much energy. But yeah, so the Husafel was a totally different idea after going the first time and seeing the shape and the size of it because it's so much smaller than the big coffins that we use here.
Yeah. And so I think as you were saying, when you're training really wasn't the things that you were training with weren't really transferable.
Well, I mean, basic strength is going to if
Yeah.
you're strong enough, you can pick up almost anything if you know somewhat of the technique. It's just that I've seen people fail on their videos when they've spent all that money and that time and that effort to get there, thinking they can kind of cup it, and because you make your lever so much shorter, that I just try to warn people, hey, try using your forearms a little more extended, train in fatigue, train when you're tired. So because that distance, that travel, that lack of sleep, and even for me, it's a 6-7 hour difference from here to there on time zones. So like your lunch is now dinner. So and there's a whole bunch of things to think about to just to have any kind of peak to get there in the right way and strength. So
Okay, so I don't want to nerd out and I don't want you to reveal anything that you don't want to reveal, but tell us about like the measurements. How did you get it to like what was the process of that? Like you measured everything, but like it's even visually it looks the same. How
that's the
did
whole
you
point.
Yeah, like but how did you do that without cast like doing a silicone cast?
So on my phone, I cleared all my memory, and I took
Okay.
about 1,000 photos of every with a tape measure sitting on top of it, so I knew exactly where this crack and this hole and this hand position, all these spots and places were all on picture. And then I actually took a hotel shower curtain. It's like, yeah, maybe a illegal theft, but we'll talk about that later. And put it over the top of it and traced it on with a Sharpie marker onto the plastic. So I had an actual like D size formed all the way around it. So I had a tangible, like I could see it and lay it on things that I was forming to make sure I was in the right spot, and then had the height, the depth, the width, all the cracks and crevices and the layers of it, um, all taken pictures of. So I had pretty much a 3D model of it when I got back to Houston.
Wow. And so once you were doing the beer stones and then you've done the Husafel stone, like who was kind of like the first after that, who were the kind of the first to use it? Like,
Stone was the first competition that was used. He had two of each out of 220 for the amateurs, the 320 for the pro women, and the 410 for the pro men. And so it's Gabe at his house now. I think he now lives in Kansas. I believe he has all 6 stones at his house still. So he was the first competition, the first promoter to ask for them. Since then, I know I think I have 50 pound up to 410. I think there's 8 stones that my good friend Spence has up in Dallas area at his gym at USA Barbell. And Alice Strength Shop in Baton Rouge has a set, I think 4 of them in their strongman area as well. And obviously there's 1 or 2 here and there for people's home gyms that were crazy enough to reach out to the guy that pours concrete for things as well. So,
but none in Canada yet.
None in Canada, and that's because shipping across y'all's border is absolutely insane. I shipped a bunch of my molds across the border in 2020 and 2021, but all of a sudden I started getting messages from people like, the border fee was like $80 USD and like $120 extra to get it in Canadian money. I'm like, I turned it off on my website because I just felt bad for the customer getting surprised with something that I had no idea why it was happening. So I get messages, and we'll do like a friend-to-friend mailing system, but there's still a pretty crazy fee at the border for even if it's not a sales item that's American going in Canada's border. So
yeah. No, for sure. Being in Highland Games, I've had many things shipped, and I had a thing of tacky. I paid the amount of duty that I paid on my tacky was the same amount.
Yeah, it's it doubles or triples the price.
Yeah, it's wild. So, can you tell us what was the hardest part of doing that replica? Like, did you end up carving it out even a bit after you kind of did the first mold? How many times did you try to get this mold perfectly?
So with just concrete, it's like an Atlas stone. With just concrete, it's not the correct weight. It's actually almost 100 pounds too light. So just if you have an 18-inch Atlas stone mold, it's going to make a 240-pound Atlas stone. But if you want a 275, you throw in some steel in the middle, and it's now the same size but heavier. So I do the same thing. I can make it's the correct shape, but it'll be whatever weight I need it to be in between.
Wow. And then, so after Husafel, what was the next stone that you fabricated?
You got me thinking between months. I had too much brain damage from American football. Let's see. Okay, so I did for the Arnold Amateurs the second year. I was asked to make a loading race, and we talked about crazy, weird, odd objects to use. And me being in stone lifting, I was like, well, wouldn't it be kind of funny to see them loaded a Basque cube? So I made a bunch of different weights of Basque cubes for them to load. And then they also were like, well, let's do Husafels too, since you got those. I'd love to see those get loaded. So totally mistreating the cubes and totally mistreating the Husafels. That they got beat up pretty bad by the end of the day. But yeah, the next thing that I made were replica Basque cubes that were painted and rough to be just like the ones that they would use over in the Basque country for a loading race. So that was the next time I did it. And then I guess it would have been OSG's Loadable Nickels when Lynn, I met with Lynn at World's Strongest Man in Myrtle Beach the first year. It was there in 2023. 2024, and we discussed you're Stix and Stones. Yeah, you're OSG. How's it going? The first time we had ever really met in person, and he was like, "Well, I like the name of your company. Maybe we could talk about doing an event that's wood and stones. Yeah, I could do a medley." I was like, "Yeah, just let me know. Maybe logs in this or whatever." I was naming all the different types of wood things that I can make, and he was like, "Well, yeah, I feel like the walking stones would be kind of cool." So that's when we started coming up with how do we make loadable walking stones that are actually concrete. And then we talked about it not really being my event; it'd be sponsored by Cerberus because they had the loading pins at the time that they were selling, and they were working on nickel stone pins at the time as well for Brett to have his stone heights and weights. So I reached out to Brett. And I was like, "Hey, I'm not trying to step on toes. Lynn and I have talked about possibly doing a walking stone event using the Cerberus pins. Would you be okay with me getting the measurements of your stones and seeing how we can make it on these pins so people are actually carrying rocks with plates underneath them?" And if you're okay with it, can I use your family name and put them as replica nickels if I get them close enough with your thumbs up? And he was like, of course, Brett's a high energy guy. Like he's all about stone lifting and then his walking stones, and obviously the keeper of the Denny's as well. And he was super juiced about it. He sent me hundreds of pictures of, and like his tape measures, and then there's a curve here and there's this and that. So I had so many pictures of the full stone, but they had to have so many parameters to stay with them because the weight pin is only so tall from Cerberus, so I couldn't have the bottom where the plates are going to be, and then it getting taller with the plates underneath it. I couldn't have the top of the stone, so pretty much the only part of the stone that I could replicate was like the dead center middle of the sandwich of the stone. So the top's cut off, the bottom's cut off, and there's just these weird like oblong flat like slabs of concrete rocks that feel like the nickel stones, but they certainly don't look like it. And he was totally jacked about it. So he allowed the name to be a replica nickel stones for the event, and then the frames that I made to go with them. But yeah, he very generous of him to allow me to say like, yeah, they're replica nickel stones, and they definitely don't look like them, but they do feel on the shin, and as they rattle against you, they feel like the nickels.
That's amazing. I remember watching OSG that year, and like, who were some of the people in the men's classes that lifted that year? What do you remember? What the record was that they set for those?
For OSG, it wasn't a distance record; it was a medley. So they had to go, I think,
right.
20 meters with the stones, and then I'm sorry, 50 meters with the frames, and then 20 meters with the stones.
Yes.
So they were already pre-fatigued by the 508, or sorry, the open men had a 880-pound frame, I think, or 800-pound frame, and then they had the full weight of the nickels. I think it was like 305 and 205, 255 was the ending weight for the men's nickel stones.
So funny thing about that. So I had been hoping to come compete in that, and I think so I would have been in masters, and I believe our frame weight was around the 500. And then I think the nickel stones were at maybe like 180. Was there a 180 180 to 160 or something like that? And I had been talking to Lynn leading up to this event, and he was asking me, okay, like, what are the weights for the women's? Because I had been doing walking stones in our competitions and had weights in that. And so he'd reached out to me to say like, hey, like, what are the various weights? And I think that was part of like the canvassing to see like what the weight would be for the various classes. But I was so upset that I couldn't get to do that event. Very, very cool. And
I got a lot of middle fingers and handshakes after that one for sure.
No doubt, because and I've said this on multiple sessions or podcast sessions that I have been on, is that the hook grip is so key. But there are folks that don't really want to do it because it basically takes your thumbnail off. But to get the distance and to complete that 20 meters fast, you definitely need that hook grip because they're banging around. But no, very, very cool.
You had mentioned Lynn asking about research on the previous walking stones for women. That's honestly what I love most about Lynn is when he does decide to do an event. If he's done it 3 years before or the past 2 years, whatever it is, he's got a log of every weight ever lifted by the best in the world in OSG that he keeps a log of over the past 10 years or 5 years, whatever it is now. And he's able to go back and use those averages, how many failures, how many 50%ers, how many full speed runs they were, and kind of use those numbers to then either up 10 pounds, make it a little harder, make it a little easier to help with those events. But like for a stone walk, there's no real like, and even a 200-pound stone in your left hand could feel like 400 if it's massive and not very dense because it's hitting you in the leg more. If it's a steel ball, it's much easier because it's so much smaller. You don't have to lean as far, you don't have to go as wide with them. So like there's so many variables with it that we did the best we could, especially with the frame being in front of it, because then you have to add in that whole other layer of fatigue and grip strength into it, that we were on the floor as we were going through each weight class. If we started to see like it's a world stage, so you want only a third to fail, a third to get halfway, and a third, maybe a third complete, because like it's supposed to be a world level stage, so the weights should be tough enough that you're at least in broken thirds of amazing, that was tough, I got stapled to the floor. So as we were going through each weight class, he'd lean over to me. He's like, that seems a little light, right? I was like, yeah, let's bump it up 10 pounds. And we kind of go from there and then we found a good medium by about the third or fourth women's category. And we went from there, and not many changes happened after that. So it was cool to kind of on the fly make sure that it wasn't too easy for y'all. But also to keep it to where not 90% of the group was getting pinned to the floor on anything.
And how did they end up for durability when you use those stones? Did they all kind of survive the?
Yeah, as far as I know, they're all still full. No cracks, no breaks off of them. The name tags, the placards on them that say the big nickel and the wee nickel on them, I believe they only broke off because the loaders and the volunteers were flipping them over to take the pins out, and they were grabbing it by the name tag, and they popped them off a couple. So nothing broke off the stones while they were being used by the competitors, but there were a few name tags that got popped off because they were getting used as a handle to flip the stones over as we were changing weights for each weight class.
That's incredible. And then let's go to this year's OSG, which was, or maybe there was one in between that I don't know.
The Websters.
Okay, well, yeah, let's go to the Websters, and then we'll talk about this year's OSG. Yeah.
So the Webster stones came about because of the nickel stones. Colin and Darren were at OSG like they are every year as a kind of overseeing body of it, and we were discussing back and forth things that are possible, and they realized that they kind of still look like rocks even though they're kind of shaped funny, and Colin being so interested in having such a long history at strongman in Olympic sports as well, was very interested in having someone weird like me that could possibly be the person to call for certain things. And we traded WhatsApp numbers and made sure that I told him, I was like, you just got to give me time. Like, if you're going to make me figure out something brand new, I need months in advance, because it's just me. Like, the Stix and Stone is, everything that I've built to come out, it's a self-limiting factor. I can't say yes to 25 comps this year because I can't build for 25. It's just me. So I was like, if you need something, let's talk early and like give me months in advance to start kind of quietly doing some research and develop on it. With those, the Webster stones happened because they had been using the nickel stones in GL Europe's and GL UK, having the single set of actual nickel stones over there. They had and Giants Live is a much faster paced show. It's much closer to CrossFit in speed of events in between, and much less a long, slow all day, because the World's Strongest Man is two or three, maybe three events in a day, and it's 12 hours long. You have 3 minutes of total work to do over an entire daylight day. But in Giants Live, they're done in 2.5 hours, maybe. So it's a lot quicker pace. So they were saying that they didn't want to use the Denny stones in a Giants Live because it would be, the winner would have like 7 feet of distance. It wouldn't be good for TV or live stream. And the nickel stones, having only one set, it slows down the pace of the event, and the reset, bringing the stones back each time, and then measuring it gets a little slowed down. And they asked me, is it possible to make a set of stones that they look like the size of the Denny's, but they're a little lighter than the nickels. They're not hitting the guys as hard. So I had these dimensions that I need to stay underneath while keeping them kind of the same weight, but a little lighter than the nickels, so that there would be a speed aspect to it. There'd be a distance and endurance, and then a grit at the very end. So the guys are starting to lose their grip and walking as far as they can go. And it's more of a farmer's walk for distance than it is a stone battering your shin for how long you can handle the pain, And then obviously the rings as well. So that all that taken in, we had started discussing how to make them. And when I sent my contract for like my agreement, like, this is what I'm planning on doing, I'd like to name them the Webster stones. David Webster had just recently passed away a couple months prior, and Arnold had done a walking stone event using their replica Denny's and their Jet stones, I believe, as a head nod to him as a memorial. Now, I was hoping that, because he had spent so many years helping with World's Strongest Man, that this could be like one final thank you to David before in his first year of not being on Earth anymore. So I was like, I'd love for y'all to say yes to this being named after Mr. Webster. And it took them like a week because nothing on. So World's Strongest Man is like a reality TV show with the skin of a strongman event. It's still a competition. It's still like one of the most well-known and most respected titles to have, but it's a TV show first. Like everything is done for the camera, for the final product at the end, where everyone gets to see it in the summer, 6 months later, and 8 months later in Christmas or whatever. So, with that being said, me saying this is what I'd like to do, 8 people had to read my agreement and sign off on it, saying, yeah, well, we can call it that. And I think they appreciated the fact that it was going to be a memorial for David as well, because it gives the talking heads on the microphone something to talk about in between runs as well. So thankfully they agreed to that part, and I was able to create something that could be a good head nod to Mr. Webster. But yeah, so they actually asked me to make 4 sets. And in my mind, I was like, I mean, if you're running 4 lanes, that's awesome, because it would look crazy to have 4 guys running. So I created 4 sets, and I started bringing them up there. And on the week before, I guess the higher ups were like, that's going to not take enough time for TV, because there's only 10 guys in each group, or sorry, 5 guys in each group. So we can't really do how they were planning on doing it. So they ended up going 2 lanes, and they had 2 extra sets for the guys to play with in the boneyard and to warm up with and get their grip right before they went out to the 2 lanes. And now, fast forward to right now, in my workshop right now, I have 3 more sets that are about to get shipped off to London this coming week for Europe's, so that Giants Live Europe's will have a set, and then they're reusing the same ones that I had made 2 years ago for the Natural Stone Medley. I believe it's replacing the press, because the press, I think, had a little too much risk involved for the guys to try to press under time. So they took the stone press, overhead press out, and then put the walking stones into that.
Wow. And then we go to OSG, which was the loadable natural stones.
Yeah. Fake natties.
Yeah. Yeah. And I loved that event so much. Talk to us about that, and let's talk about how that one went down in the end. And
down is a good word for it. So they in creating these bladder-filled concrete rocks, there's only a certain amount of weight you can add into them and have enough concrete around the bladders to then be able to handle impact. And we were taking a risk on the lightest stones for the women, because they had to be 150 pounds. I think it was lightest stone to start off with. So that's not a lot of concrete. 150 pound Atlas stone, it's pretty thick, maybe 12 to 14 inches across. But if you have to put an air bubble in the middle of it, that 150 pounds minus the weight of the steel, it becomes like only 100 pounds of concrete. That's 2 bags of concrete if you were doing it from a Home Depot, like whatever off the shelf concrete. So that becomes only like a 2, maybe 1.5, 2 inches in the spots around the bladder. And we were taking that risk that this may crack by the time it gets up to the big boys, but I was hoping it would go a little further down the line than the second round of women. I felt so bad. I almost had a panic attack behind the rail. But before that, and figuring them out, I had to create molds for something that had an air bubble in it that took weight out of the rock. So I'm doing an invisible puzzle that's inside out and upside down, and figuring and repouring and figuring out these mold situations for it, and then pouring a couple that were close to correct, and then obviously kind of changing the weight like an Atlas stone would, with foam on one side, or with wood, or with steel inside, or steel shot, to create the numbers as close to as I could within 1% difference of the goal weight and then the weight it needed to be. But those bladders inside could get about 175 pounds of steel shot in them, so that we could have the tiniest of ladies and teenagers. Mm-hmm. Actually, the teens didn't do it. The tiniest of women, the 64-kilo ladies, were picking up some of the same stones as the big boys at the other ends. But they were obviously 100 and 200.
Okay, I didn't realize. I thought they were plate loadable in the center. So did that make them feel, did it like shift it a little bit as it went up, or?
As I loaded one at home, and only about halfway, because I figured if it's more than half, it's not going to shake as bad, because those BBs are going to touch each other. But less than half is not going to be heavy enough to interchange. So I put about 100 pounds in there, and I picked it up and kind of like rolled it on my lap to see if it was those steel BBs inside a compact area will lock themselves into a lattice work and almost like create structure inside. So only like the top maybe quarter inch is actually moving until it gets rolled over. That's when it starts to tumble. That no one, I talked to a bunch of the people after they were done with them. I was like, hey, could you feel the shot inside? They're like, nah, dude, that was the craziest thing I've ever done in my life. So even if they possibly could have felt it on a practice run under all the adrenaline and the lights and the whistles, no one noticed that the shot was inside the rocks.
And okay, you mentioned about the process of how you got this. How many forms did you have to create before you got to that final one?
I only messed up one. So I overshot the biggest stone that was on the far end of the line, the kind of rectangular black one. I poured it. I got that form. I thought correct, but when I poured the first stone, it was like 80 pounds too heavy. And I was like, I had to end up taking the form apart, chopping it down, doing some weird magic science to get it to be much closer to the weight that was necessary for that bigger stone. I think it was 250 was the first opening weight for the last weight of the women. So it was definitely a lot of trial and error, but the time limit I had, because me and Lynn talked about this at Fefor. We're having glasses of whiskey one night and just discussing like, is this even possible? Because we had talked about something crazy like this about a year prior, but the timing wasn't going to work, and his budget was obviously he's his budget's fairly low with these comps. At the time, he had used a lot of money on something else that he was really excited about, so we pushed it to this past year, and this is in July, for a second week of July, we're discussing this, and he's like, "Yeah, do you think it's possible?" I was like, "Yeah, it's pretty possible, and I can figure it out." And then like a week later, I get home and like he posted that there's gonna be a natural stone load. I'm like, "Bro, what are you doing?" So I had a fire lit and had to figure out how to do it and get it done. All while I was making logs for Strongest Man on Earth secretly, and a couple other things that I had to juggle in different parts of my workshop. I also had to figure out how to make fake rocks loadable with shots. So it was definitely a stressful few months, but getting closer and closer to the competition, realizing that I was getting it done correctly was really fun.
So for those that haven't watched the OSG Natural Stone Run, it's a definite must. It's amazing to watch. Sandra Bradley, had hurt her back and she did an amazing job. And watching the women go through it was phenomenal. And I think a number of us around the world, while we were watching this, were also very nervous for you because, you can't give strong men and women nice things because
No.
we break them. And I think with every load, because I mean, you're not being gentle with them, right? Like, because it's for speed and time. You could see some of them going over, and then eventually, I think it was the women's run that had happened. Was it the women's run that the final stone broke, and then the sandbag had to go in?
It was the first stone on the right lane in the second group of women.
Right.
So the 73 kilo women, I think. Halfway through their group, the first stone took a bad tumble on the athlete side and hit the floor, and it had a pretty bad crack in it. And the guys in that lane were like, "Hey, this one's cracking." I was like, "Well, if it cracks, we're going to figure it out. But if it breaks off, like cracks are okay, but if it breaks off and the chunk comes off, then we got to figure out how to do something different." So the very next woman, it fell back on her side again and broke a chunk off. And she finished her run. She picked it up and got it over right after that, and then did one more stone. And we kind of paused for a second. That group had to go just one lane for like the last 4 or 5 girls, and then we ended up adding a sandbag to each side and took out the other one, so there would be even 2 lanes. So sandbag, stone, 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 stone. So, or sorry, 4 stones. So 3 stones right after the first sandbag.
And so you're working on a number of other special projects, like it hasn't ended, you've continued. Can you share any of those with us? Or alternatively, is there a stone you want to fabricate that you haven't done yet that you're keen on?
I can't turn my camera right now because there's something that I have to finish and do something. So like right there is the thing that I can't talk about yet.
Boo.
As far as special projects, I'm working on at the same time right now. Obviously finishing the Webster stones to ship them overseas, hopefully by the end of next week. And then I'm making the medals for the Riveter 3 competition, which is the biggest all-women's comp every year, which you totally should come try it out on River 4 because it's awesome, and it's a great weekend of women yelling at each other all weekend. So you definitely should consider getting your passport ready to go to come down to Texas in next March for Frank's competition. But yeah, I'm building that making those awards for that and the steeplechase attachments for some yokes for that competition as well. And there's a couple of things down the line that I'll start working on once I get past this March. And I'll be helping with some things in Fefor. Are you going to Fefor this year? Did I hear that correctly?
No, I think that it'll be a next year thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, when I land in Oslo and take the train ride north and get in town, that first day I'm there, Egil and I are building something for the competition at that point. So it'll be for the next day. So it'll be a quick hustle build to get it done and ready for the athletes to play with that when I get there. So I can't remember if he's announced that one yet, so I can't really talk about that one yet, but my thumbprints will be on something in Norway when you get there the following year.
Amazing. And is there a historic stone that you would like to replicate?
Yeah. So that's an awkward question because the more I replicate, the less, not the less special it becomes, but I feel like it does take away a lot of the aura for me in lifting natural stones. My first trip was in 2019, I believe. I think it was May 2019. I was going overseas with my wife to go to a wedding of one of her college teammates in Europe, and we had a layover in Scotland. And I was like, hey, let's not do a 2 hour. Let's do like a 2-day layover. Let's go a little early. And we did a 2-day, 500-mile drive around the Highlands. And I picked up, I tried 9 and failed 1 in that 2 days. But it was the most quiet and self-fulfilling lift or success that I've had as an athlete. Like college football, I played in front of 75, 90,000 people. The floor shakes when when a touchdown happens. But picking up one of these stones, it's just you and the souls that have touched it before you. And there's this connection with that line of tested individuals that you now are of standard with by that single test. Obviously, the feather in your cap can be from any number of things from any clan in Scotland, but that stone is there for a reason to measure the men that see themselves worthy. And those tests that I was able to do as a pretty much newbie in stone lifting, I hadn't really done it ever before in 2019, was so special to me to pick up those stones and see if I could have been considered a real man by the clans of old Scotland and the Highlands. And creating too many pure replicas of them, I feel like it does take a little bit of that shine off the stone for me. And Husafell still is to me is the standard. The Husafell, the Denny's, obviously the nickel stones are awesome. I love Brett to death. But I feel like the more I get asked to do, it's going to take. It's like you love a concert because you're in the stands, but if you're the guy in the back making sure the guitars are working, it's less fun for you,
Yeah.
So I feel like the next natural stone I'm asked to do, honestly, if a stone catastrophically breaks and is no longer usable, that's when I want to replicate that stone so that we can have one out there in that same spot. And you've seen, Sexy Granddad.
The Wallace Pudding stone?
Jamie Gorian.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of work to help fix the ones. My very first stone I went to go pick up in 2019 wasn't there. It had been taken away because the Wallace Pudding stone had been cracked in half a month before I got there. So my first stone to pick up wasn't there because I had no idea that it had been broken by someone that had dropped it onto another stone before. So that would be the reason I would say, hell yes, I'm down to come over, put this stone together, create a mold, and then copy it exactly so that there would be a reusable, droppable stone that could be touched for hundreds of years to come after that. And then if in 20 years, if it starts to chip away, because concrete's not as good as granite, I can make another one. But that seems to be what I would in my head why I would say yes to copying or to replicate any stone that is a true historic stone in nature. I mean, and there's thousands in Japan that I want to go touch at some point. There's like 16,000 historic lifting stones in Japan. Obviously, there's a bunch in the Scandinavian countries. I just there are so many to go play with. I don't think me adding a one that's made out of handmade concrete feels like it's taking away from the true nature of what stone lifting is. The Husafell was for me because I was being selfish and I wanted to try and train with something that's really close to it, and it's become kind of its own thing here. But I feel like there's not a stone that I like. I want to go copy it right now. It feels very self-serving to aim for that. But if there's ever a need where like a bigger competition wants to use something like that for a show, but they don't want to use the real one, then I could be convinced to talk about doing that. But for my own glory and my own like put it on my shelf of trophies, that feels a little strange to like aim to. I want to do this one next.
I so appreciate that ethos because I wasn't sure how you were going to answer this question, to be honest. And I think it's in alignment with how a lot of people would feel in the stone community. And I think, you know, if a reputable stone, a historic stone breaks in that, I think that is, that is a nice segue. But into wanting to replicate it. But what do you think about the use of the historic stones in competition? Because I think this is where you fabricating the Husafell, I think, is really great because you have something that is pretty near exact, and then you don't get the wear and tear on the actual historic stone itself. What are your thoughts on the use of historic stones in competition?
So with like Donald Denny Day, they use Inverstone, the Inverness, the Intercalled. Obviously, the Denny's are picked up a couple hundred times by people on that day. The Stolman brothers, all three picked it up the year I was there. And I mean, Tom did a twirl twice around on the 18-wheeler stage. I mean, I think it's wonderful for adding more knowledge about the historic stones and the history of them and why they're being used. But if it's solely for like Donald Denny Day does it great. Brett, Stevie, all the guys in the Scottish stone lifting world do a wonderful job for Donald Denny Day. It's all done in the fields. All the walking stones are done on the grass. There's a field distance record for the nickel stones, which I think there should only be a field record, not a competition record anymore for his stones. But obviously, if Giants Live wants to use them, he definitely needs to say yes to that. But the Husafell getting used at the Magnus Classic is, I mean, it's where it's where it's supposed to be walked around the goat pen. It could be freezing cold outside. It could be sunny and warm. The amount of drops the Husafell takes from that high is a little sketch. I've heard rumblings of it growing a crack through the center of the heart of the stone. I asked Magnus a while back, and he was like, "I haven't seen the crack, but I'll check it for next year's competition." I told him, I was like, if there needs to be a stone that like what I'll fly over there and make a couple Husafells that are lighter for people to warm up with, and the big one. And he was like, "We'll discuss that if and when it breaks." I'm like, "Well, let's do it before it breaks." But it was a funny conversation. Yeah, but the treatment of the stone is different when it's done by someone who knows the history, has paid their own way, is going there for their own testing of their strength with the stone, because there's an honor with that test. And any congregate of human being, we talked about this, any congregate of human beings that are going into the same thing, there's going to be a percentage of a-holes.
Yeah.
Some bad actors, but in a competition setting, even the good guys that are truly good people are still going to be going as fast as they can go to full fatigue and falling, dropping, and from tree topping the Husafell, because it is a much higher pick than, say, the Denny stones 3 inches off the ground, the nickel stones 5 to 7 inches off the ground. It's much higher impact per drop when it's not done correctly. And I believe the first year they did the Husafell was in a field that was like kind of downhill, and when they dropped it, it was into the mud, so it didn't take big hits. But on that gravel, it's still loose and it doesn't have a true like concrete like banging off the pavement drop. But there is still pretty big impacts for the Husafell. So I mean, it's an open monument. It's anybody can walk up and touch it. It's not like you have to pay money to go see it or ask a farmer permission to get on their public private lands. So you can't stop people from going to touch it. Like the day that I went to go pick it, there was a small van of like 18 people that pulled up to go do the walk around the goat pen, and they were watching me warm up for it. So I mean, you can't ask for a hobby of ours that we love and enjoy to have more eyes on it without having more eyes on it. So with that bigger group of people, there is a same percent chance of having people that don't truly care as much but are doing it for likes and clicks. There's gonna be people out there that are doing it to rage bait a bit, and then you're gonna have people that just don't know because they saw a video of someone doing it. Oh, I'm gonna be there next month. I'll go try and pick up that rock while I'm there. And they pick it up, but then they don't understand the etiquette of bringing it back to the ground safely. So in competition, it's almost a forced lack of etiquette because they're under a time limit and they're under a distance that they have to be, and they become fatigued and drop it. And there's a bit of showmanship in that I'm tossing 410 pounds off my chest at the end of this thing. But then on the other side, there's 1,000 tourists that walk by that rock every year that either flip it over or lean it up against the goat pen. Like when I got there, it had been tipped towards the goat pen on the second time, but it was off the ground. So thank goodness it wasn't frozen, but you don't know what's being done the other 300 days a year where it's not being lifted, who's touching it, what's happening either. So you're trying to police a situation that's fairly unpoliceable, and you're just hoping that the general consensus of people that know what they're doing will do the right thing and call out the people that are doing it wrong so they understand the next time.
Yeah. This has been a great conversation on the role of Sticks and Stone in kind of playing that balancing conservation part, and also uh, kind of making the stone lifting more popular. And I was kind of hoping now, we were talking there about the Husafell, but I want to talk about your personal experience with it. Like, what was that moment like? What did you achieve? I mean, it was your second time back.
I have only failed 2 stones of any of the stones that I lifted, and one is the chieftain stone at the Castle Mangus in Scotland. I failed it twice due to rain and due to stitches in my hand. And then with the Husafell, that failure was obviously with getting it off the ground the first time. So I have a lot of bubbles in my gut trying to keep emotions down. It was more of a relief than a celebration when I got it to my chest. I mean, I was exhausted. I didn't know about the flipping technique. I just barehanded, have lifted it up to my chest, burned all my grip energy, did it completely wrong, and still got my steps in. I can't call myself full sturker, did not make it full way around, but I did what I considered did enough for my short trip around the northern fjords, or sorry, the west fjords of Iceland. That trip, loved it. It was awesome. Uh, the the picking of it, just getting air under it was such a relief because
Yeah.
the year prior, it was frozen to the ground, so I had like a lot of energy towards that. But yeah, it was definitely it's one of the most awkwardly dense stones that I've ever picked because it's so much smaller than you think it's going to be at 410 pounds. And especially here in Texas, we have a lot of like sandstone and like slate. So it's not the minimal granite in our area. So a lot of sedimentary, a lot of like brittle, like kind of shag rock and moss rock. So all the stones that are that kind of weight are massively bigger than that igneous, really dense volcanic rock that's in Iceland. So the size being so much smaller and it feeling so much denser and colder because of the iron content in the rock. It's a really interesting touch, and like so much like some parts of it are glass smooth from the skin that have rubbed it for years. So it's one of them. It's one of the more prolific lifting stones for a reason.
And you mentioned you've also done attempted the chieftain, and so you've been on a Scottish stone tour as well. Talk to us about what
Yes, ma'am.
stones you did there.
Oh Lord. So 2019 was my 2-day tour. The sprint through the Highlands. I did the what I thought was the Wallace, was not the Wallace Stone. It was the Wallace Pudding Stone. It was another one that's now part of that 5 stone run that Jamie put together there. Um, Went to the Saddle and Mare after that. Put it on the saddle. Um, the Fianna Warrior Stone. Set it on its plinth. Failed the Castle Manga Stone because it was pissing rain outside, and that thing is smoother than glass. That's the smoothest stone that I've ever touched in my life. It's crazy, and it's a much wider, like awkwardly like egg shaped stone, like an Atlas stone that wasn't poured correctly, and like the form kind of stretched out a bit. That one beat me pretty badly. I didn't even get it off the ground. It was crazy. Then went to the Dalwhinnie Stone, got it off in the rain, got it up to my shoulder. Trying to remember trying to remember the circle drive for that first one. Then Newton Moor,
Yeah.
and then to the 2 Ockernock stones. I'm not sure I'm saying that one right. Accardo stones. And then the last day we were there, I chested the Inver stone and got to meet Miss June, and then drove down and flew off that day. The next day. Then the second time we went back, I think was in 2022, and another somewhat short trip. As far as stone lifting side, we were there as a family, kind of having fun, and I brought my Husafeld mold to the UK for us to pour some stones with Brett Nichols. So that's when the Scottish stone lifting guys got a few Husafeld stones over there that were made with my mold. Went up to the Bereaven stone at the Kirkton Bereaven, which that one might be my favorite Scottish stone with the Inver, because the story behind it being a punishment stone and sitting on top of the people that got in trouble with the church. Then did the Dalwhinnie again. I think then the Pudarak on the Pudarak plinth. I'm probably saying those wrong as well. The monocle stone that was now brought there because it was used as a fire block by a camper, and Jamie had moved it over there to keep it safe so it wouldn't be used again.
Yeah.
And then dude, I actually the day before, like the week before we flew out, I had cut my hand open on a piece of plywood and had like 9 stitches in my palm. And so I was doing a lot of the lighter stones as we were traveling around, but anything above like 300 was like I would pop a stitch. So we went by Castle Mangus and the Chieftain stones there, and I failed it the couple years before. It was like, I can give it a try. So we pulled up, did the full tour. I paid a little tip to the lady at the front desk, and we went outside. And I'm taped up. I got like the gauze and stuff sticking out of my hand. And I just wanted to just give it a tug just to see. And I broke ground with it because it was dry, but I just couldn't get all the athletic tape on my hand. I couldn't get a good purchase, and it slid out. And I just scarred both forearms with just cheese grated my forearms with it.
Wow.
Then we went north from there after that failure again. So I had two trips of failure with the Chieftain. And I think we did some of like the modern lifting stones that they've been putting out. Oh, what's it called? The Bullers of Buckenstone, which is off of a cliff off the North Shore, and then just near there is the Millshore Stone. Did that one as well. And yeah, that one was the Millshore Stone was beautiful. It's on like a pebble beach, and it's kind of set just off in the grass that's right behind the beach. Then the next day went on a stone tour with Martins Leases and Romark. They did their stone tour around Scotland for their Strength Unknown series, and I was just behind camera while they were recording everything and got to lift a couple rocks with them. But yeah, a pretty cool moment to see them out there in a random country. And then obviously they did Donald Denny Day that year and had fun lifting the stones, and Romark successfully picking up the Denny's. But yeah, the Denny's have escaped me since I was planning on doing it that Donald Denny Day, but with my hand. Didn't feel like going to a UK doctor's office to get stitches replaced. So that's been my stone tours so far up to date. I think I might have missed a couple here and there, but.
So Denny's, are they on the list of things to do?
So I hope so. No true plans to get back into Scotland for right now. The next thing I'll probably be doing is this summer is going to Fefor and having fun there for 10 days, and then coming back through Dublin and going through a quick Irish stone tour down there.
Oh, great. Okay, so I wanted to stop at Fefor first because I had Kiki on last week, and she, of course, said lovely things about you. And
All lies.
I doubt. But I hear that you are kind of the support behind a lot of the events. Talk to us about your Fefor experience because you also competed too while you were there, correct?
So didn't actually compete last year. It was a fun vacation and decided that that was going to be where we were going to go for 10, 12 days. And uh, the first OSG that I built for in 3 years ago with the nickel stones and the frames, I met Egil and Kiki there, and they were obviously had come from Norway, were good friends with Lynn. And we ended up that Sunday night after everything was done, sitting in the hotel lobby, drinking whiskey till all hours in the morning, and just discussing this thing that they've been doing for a couple of years called Fefor. Like they were obviously speaking Norwegian to each other in between. And I was like, well, I don't know what the hell they're saying. I'm from South Houston. I don't speak Norwegian. And they kept like joking about like this guy needs to come because I had just finished helping all weekend with Lynn, and obviously Egil was helping and Kiki was competing, and after she was done, she ended up helping as well. We've seen your work. You're awesome, dude. Let's go. We want you to come and hang out and compete and help if you want to at Fefor. I was like, well, I mean, that's a big ask to figure out how to fly to Oslo and then try to plane, trains, and automobiles. So kind of brought it up to my wife. Not going to happen that year. Fast forward the next year in Madison, Wisconsin, got to see Egil and Kiki again. And then Egil's like, you're coming next summer. You're coming. You have to come. I was like, I mean, it does sound cool. Like, I'm going to tag you in everything we post. Whatever we got to do, let's get you there. So we ended up making that our vacation. So my wife came to and flew over there and took the plane over, the train north, and the minivan over to the hotel area. And I mean, it's summer camp for strength athletes. It really truly is. You're fed well. You're in a great place to sleep. Everywhere you look is a postcard with mountains and trees and lakes. It's awesome people that all have their own flavor of weird in the strength sport world coming together and sharing that flavor with each other. It's welcoming. It really is awesome time. If there was one competition that you got a carte blanche pick to do, go to Fefor and just spend the full 10 days there or 12 days, whatever it is, in Fefor, choosing to compete what you want to compete in and learning from the other ones. Like I got to flip a caber for the first time ever in Norway. Like it was like just these are the people to learn from. They're the world's best Highland Games people, and I was like, yeah, I want to learn from them, you know. So I mean, it is a truly fun 2 weeks of vacation, competition, fellowship. There's nothing bad I can say about it, except for that it's not long enough.
Right. Yeah. It's on my definite bucket list. There's a few like Iceland, Fefor, obviously Riveter now, since you sold me on, going down to that. And hey, March in Texas is, we were talking about that before we got on. I can't complain as a Canadian to give that a go when we got 3 feet of snow. But
are y'all Fahrenheit? Are y'all Fahrenheit or Celsius up there?
Celsius, yeah.
So it was, do the math, I think it was like 29 degrees Celsius the first year for Riveter. So much warmer than what you're probably used to.
Definitely not for our summer. We get humid and in the 30s and things like that. But for our winter, not definitely much warmer. So I'm adding the Riveter to it. As soon as I get off this, I'm looking that up. But you're going to Dublin, you say too. Who are you? Are you meeting up with any of the Irish folks there, like Martin or?
So haven't made any solid plans yet. I've kind of bantered with Stevie Shanks about coming and sitting in his backyard and playing with his toys. In years past, where we've talked to each other in person. If he's willing to have me again, I'll definitely go see him. David Kalin, obviously Indiana Stones. I would love to even just pass by his house and shake his hand in person for the first time. We've been in correspondence for years, ever since he started his journey from kettlebells over to the stone world. And I love the fact that he's taken it upon himself to truly like find these stones from library to grass and get these things back into the forefront. Like, and what's crazy is if you go onto Google Maps, they're monuments now on Google Maps. Like half of them have been like they're marked monuments, like any building or castle. Like the stone of the red chair is literally on Google Maps for anyone to find on accident. He's done a lot of push with his government and the local townships to find those stones. That is really cool. So if I could have a chance, I haven't reached out to him. This is kind of not really new news for me that I'm going to Ireland. Like, it's definitely, I haven't made any plans as of yet, but that's the route I want to take it back. A couple extra days, go see a couple stones, and hopefully see Stevie where he's at, and maybe hopefully if David will have me meet me out at one of the stones, or go to his house and just shake his hand, not take too much of his time.
So we didn't actually talk about your origin story for how you got into stone lifting. And we kind of glossed over that part. We talked about how you got into sticks and stone and COVID and the creation of the weight plates, but we didn't actually talk about how did stones come into your life. Was it like everybody else watching Stoneland documentary, or?
That definitely exponentially grew it at the far end of it. But
Yeah.
this kind of started from me being a certified strength coach with the NSCA. I've worked at Pac-12 universities. I worked at minor league baseball clubs, a couple different universities across the United States, and a pretty well-to-do high school here in Houston. I've gotten to use a lot of really cool equipment, and I've always been a fan of, like, whatever weight room I'm in, either I base my program for my athletes around the equipment that I have, or if I'm allowed to build out my weight room for the kids or the athletes, I want to use the correct equipment for the athletes I have so that they get better for the sports they play. And in that research and development of all these awesome new things in the strength and conditioning world, every conference and clinic I went to, there'd be these companies like Hammer Strength, Powerlifts, all the Sorinex, all these people that would have the newest and greatest and latest thing, which the more I looked into it was just like a remake of something that was done in the 90s or done in the 80s or done in the 60s, 70s, and like Nautilus systems that were covered in rust in some barn in Mississippi is now getting repainted and sold as something brand new. That realization of what's old is new again is legitimately like all the science and technology we have for strength still comes down to, like, you gotta lift heavy to get big. Like, there truly is, like, the strength comes from struggle, and in those findings of seeing like where these ideas have come from and researching and finding out, like, all the old infomercials to the 1940s black and white film, like, of people working out on tugboats with cable systems, and going further and further back into the old strongman, like circus days, and then and myself as an athlete after college football, getting into strongman, those kind of cross paths of strongman, the circus days, and these old weights into, like, going even further back, like what started that, and coming to find out, like, caveman see rock, caveman pick up rock further than other caveman stronger than caveman. Yeah. So those lifting stones were on my radar well before I ever considered doing any kind of stone lifting. But hearing and knowing, like, the whispers of these large things that were tested these men way back in the day was always in my mind. And then in 2018, 17, when the Rogue started doing their really cool documentaries of, like, Land of Ice and Fire, and the Levantadors for the Basque Country, those that was definitely a catalyst for me to go see and find these things and go try them. So definitely, like, I do have kind of the same story as most, that they heard from this YouTube video from Rogue about these stones that are everywhere, and then that me just saying this is now what I would love to go see, with, like, just like joking about it out loud with friends. Then it became a real thing, going overseas and actually picking up rocks. So.
Okay, I love that you segued into the strength coach piece, because I really wanted to kind of spend some time here. What do you think the athletes make the mistake of when they transition from barbells to stones, mindset wise and training wise?
So the biggest mistake I see is the overzealous nature of thinking you're just as strong with no handles.
Yeah.
Like the bro science of it, like, well, I deadlift 500, this 200-pound lump of whatever. That's half my deadlift. I could get that off the ground, and then it's just stapled, magnetized to the floor. Like there's a true difference in, like, gym strong helps. It definitely does, but functionally being able to know that I can get that car off you is a different thing.
Yes.
You know, so like the functional fitness is kind of like a cuss word in the strength and conditioning world. Like, be strong and be able to play your sport well, obviously, but with strongman, there's a reason why those events that we do in parking lots are now becoming more and more in college football weight rooms, and they're being done in conditioning sessions in Pac-12 and SEC schools and their football stadiums, because it is a truly functional way of being strong, be able to bring a heavy weight from here to there quickly or for a long period of time, showing strength, endurance, your grip ability on different shape, size, and modeled objects, fat bars, Saxon bars, any kind of object. That even cupping around a stone is way different than having a 3-inch axle, 2-inch axle, 1 inch, 1.25 inch, or a ring, you know? So any one of these lever changes takes a percentage of your strength out of the effect, because if it doesn't have a handle, how do you grab it? And how are you able to get your body in position safely and not fail the lift because you're not sure about the technique on how to keep yourself in position?
Yeah. And this brings me to another kind of not controversial question in the stone world, but
Ooh.
but it's one about approach. There are some folks that do not specifically train with stones on a weekly basis, and they train in the gym and then translate it out in the field or on the tour or wherever they are. And then there are some that work their stones into their programming. Which camp would you fall into? And is there a middle ground to it where there are certain stones you train for and some that you can just, go out on the tour for?
So when I first started doing strongman competitions, we didn't know half the events sometimes. Like there'd be 3 that you knew about, one that's a possible if the promoter could find it before the day of, and the 5th one will let you know when you walk into the parking lot. Like, there was always a surprise or an accidental surprise. Oh, by the way, it's not this kind of log. My buddy welded one yesterday, and it's not even painted, so don't use this log now. Like, you showed up strong and see who is the strongest on that day with these random things that we're about to pick up and throw. So I would love for promoters to have a secret event every once in a while. Just and nothing like obviously risk versus reward. Don't do a max deadlift without telling your people they have to be prepared for a max dead or anything crazy like that where you can get injured for lack of preparation. But like, throw a grip event for time in there for your 5th one that no one knows what the thing is going to be, or anything that's simple enough to not put risk on the athlete, but still be like, hey, that's kind of a cool surprise. And then they see who's the strongest on that thing without having 6 to 12 weeks of being prepared for that. And then emailing the promoter 18 times in 10 weeks, like, how high is it? How thick is it? Is there knurling? Is there paint? Is it this? Is it that? I need to make this exact or buy this exact thing from that company, so I'm ready to go. Like, it's as a builder, I get all those messages when a post comes out that I'm making a random thing for a competition 8 months from now, because everybody almost feels like they need to have exactly the same thing so they're less liable for getting hurt. But strong is strong, but I also understand that other side of that coin, that like having the thing to train with makes you mentally feel safer and therefore physically safer and able to push yourself further because you're familiar with the object. So yeah, I think there's definitely 2 sides of that coin. I'm stripped down the middle of it because I feel like if strong is strong, like if you're the baddest dude or chick walking into the building, you're going to walk out with the baddest chick and dude medal. But if you come in worried about that it's an inch higher or inch lower than you thought it was going to be, and it's totally breaking your mind, you're not truly the strongest person because your mental acuity isn't to standard as a strong person. You're physically strong, mentally, emotionally, you're brittle as hell. I do know I love that strongman is everybody's welcome to come do it. And I love the more butts in seats, the more people that are competing, the more love this sports get. Obviously, the more money will come in with the more sponsors for the bigger shows. But when you go from what it was 15, 25 years ago, where it's just big ass dudes like me picking up shit in the parking lot, and it's one weight class, open. You could be a 185-pound dude. You're still going against me at almost 400 pounds. So with the weight class system as a builder, it breaks it down into things where it almost has to become standardized and it has to be easier to find the equipment. A, because there's more companies building the stuff and there's more ways to buy it yourself. B, there's more gyms that have strongman stuff in their gyms for you to actually train with that are close to the stuff that you're using for comp. But on the other side of that, the bigger competitions that have 13, 18, 24 weight classes, it's harder to do the cooler stuff that like a single weight class, like what Clash used to be, PSL is now, and obviously Worlds and GL, they're able to do one badass piece of equipment because it doesn't have to be loadable for the smallest, lightest, and youngest up to the masters and open categories. So it's a blessing and a curse. We have more people, there's more weight classes, definitely more inclusive, but it does make it tougher to keep the spectacle in the sport, which is what I'm here for, is to build crazy weird stuff that's loadable for our tiniest friends up to our biggest friends. And that's the sole reason I'm still in business, is that I still truly feel like you can get loadable cool things for the masses in 13 to 24 weight categories, but you got to figure it out first. Because like I was able to build 2 dumbbells for Giants Live Vegas that were made of concrete and steel, and they looked awesome. They were both dead on within what are they in kilos? I think a tenth of a kilo difference in weight, and they looked beautiful. They looked scary. They looked dangerous, but the guys were completely safe because I had 2 to make, and they were exactly the same. We ran 2 lanes. They finished the event in like 25 minutes, and it looked awesome. But I can't make 65 more dumbbells that are like that for OSG, because OSG has to be loadable, or there has to be some form of different way to do it, because there's so many more inclusive weight classes for it. Again, not a bad thing. I am not mad about that at all, but there is a task in the promoter and the builders of these pieces of equipment to make them durable, safe, reusable, and still my concern after all that is a spectacle in the sport. Because like 700-pound deadlift and powerlifting it's impressive because you know the number, but it's that much red plates on each side.
Yeah.
A wagon wheel or Hummer tire that's 700 pounds, that bar is wiggling and wobbling. There's massive pieces of rubber on each side. It looks heavier. Even a yoke with plates on it looks cool, but a yoke with refrigerators on it looks even cooler. So like that weird circus background spectacle of the sport still needs to be a part of it. And with getting back to, I kind of went on the soapbox rant with the question. I apologize. I'm like yelling at everyone. Back in my day, gas was $1. Anyway, the inclusivity I love because it's helping the sport grow, but it definitely makes it tougher for promoters and builders to create cool things that are new that people haven't seen before, because then even if they do create something new, it becomes tough on them because the athletes all want that thing now so they can train with it for 4 weeks before they go to the show.
Yeah. And I think you kind of highlight something, is that in all of this, we somewhat lose the magic of chasing that perfect programming. And you talk back at the beginning of this, how, and I'm victim of it too. I would text my promoters and ask for all of the deets on whatever implement it was we were using to perfect my particular events day. But when we're talking about the programming, I think that versatility is so key. And I think when we're also talking about stones, though, there is specificity. And I wonder your thoughts on training for certain stones, like the Dinnies, like the Nickels, like the Husafel. I think that the specificity there is needed because it's something different. It's different than a farmer's carry. It's like, what are your thoughts on programming for stone events like that, whether it be the historic stones themselves or whether for comp?
If it is a truly weird one-off event, I do believe getting your hands on the thing does help. I mean, you can't, without knowing what the bar feels like, you never touch the bar, the knurling can be surprising if it's a 1990s Texas power bar or if it's a 2026 Ohio bar with volcano knurling on it. Like there's even the knurling of a straight bar could be totally different and could tear you in half if you've never touched it before. So I do understand and agree with that the specificity side of a one-off historic stone lift, a really weird piece of equipment or implement to use for your competition. But there is a give and take in that if you're so worried about how perfect your practice piece is, you're not worried about being strong. If it's a regional show that's doing a natural stone lift, which my friend Jade does a awesome odd objects run that she has with her stones and her pieces of equipment, and you're not going to find those rocks anywhere else. Even if you try it, like they're going to be different. If you live in 2 hours north of her, the rocks are going to be totally different there than they are in her backyard that she uses for her competitions. But as a strength coach, coaching my athletes for a sport and a general sport, I'm never putting things in that are like what they're going to do in practice in 2 hours, because there's no sense in taxing them and doing the things they're going to do for the sport, because that's a double negative over time. I want them generally strong, supremely powerful, and have the endurance to do it again and again and again. Now, on a sport like strongman, that same kind of thing goes, but it is no two comps are alike. Even if you did the same 5 events in Texas and anywhere in Canada, your temperature is going to be the same. Your gravel, your concrete, your rubber mats might be thicker or thinner. There's so many variables to put into the sport. The specificity and the standardization is almost impossible without a way to create and make the same thing like a Rogue or a Titan. You know, like if you have a axle bar that you want to buy, but you don't have the money to buy a Rogue axle, you can buy it from Titan, or you can go to Home Depot or a box store and buy some pipe and cut it off to length and use that. Is it going to be the same? Close. Is it going to be exact? No. But if you show up strong as hell and you've trained with your programming to get stronger than the event that you're doing, whatever you're gripping onto shouldn't be as much of the point of the lift than actually you gripping and ripping it.
So any tips before we get into kind of the final aspects of the show here on prep for Husafell?
Know that it's going to suck. As you're training for it, if you can pull and lap 90 to 110% of it, you'll be able to lap and chest the weight. You have to make sure that you are in good endurance and good fatigue level. Again, I'm going to harp on the travel. As a person my size, flying an airplane is not a restful experience. I am in a cigarette with wings and I cannot move and I'm too big for the chair. So like I feel like ass the minute I get off the airplane. So I always try my best to make sure that my endurance is up, that I can recover well, and give yourself the chance to fail the first time, be able to recover back to zero and try again. Because doing all that work for the months of training for it, doing all the payment and finance you might have to do to get your flight and your hotels paid for, rental car, all that, to then fail and not have the energy to try again because you're so burnt out is the actual failure, because you're not bringing the engine you should have brought for the race you're about to have. So come in well conditioned, and if you're barely strong enough to do it, your conditioning and your recovery will help you get through the rest of it.
Well, for those that have it on the list, you heard it here. Those are your tips. Add those to your training journal. Make sure you go over those. Do you have any other historic stones besides the Dinnies that you're hoping to lift in? I mean, you're going to Ireland, but like any specific ones in particular?
I am what's it called? The Clock to Sart is the font stone in Ireland. When they have to, like that donut shaped one where you grab the center and kind of tire flip it up. I really am excited to try that one. The stone of the red chair in Ireland. If we can get down south to that one. And I believe there's one on the west coast over by not the causeway. the Stones of Moore, I believe. I think it's the Martin Tim or I cannot Gaelic and the speech of the Irish. I can't say any of those letters correctly, but it's on the West Shores that I hope to get out to because they're just the prolific view, the scenery, and then the
Mm.
story behind them are really cool.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's been amazing listening to all of this. And I'm very cognizant of the time. And I have so many more questions that I had wanted to ask you. But I think just a few more if you will entertain me. But out of
Of
all the
course,
stone experiences that you've had, what do you think was the one that you'll never forget, whether it's fabrication or lifting? What is your most, I don't know, magic moment that you've had?
the Inver Stone in Miss June's front yard.
Mhm.
Both like at that time, it being the ninth stone I tried on the second day, I'm exhausted. My forearms are bleeding. I'm taped up so I don't put blood on this beautiful stone. Knocking on her front door and getting to meet her in person, introduce myself, and she was so kind at the time. She's like, "Well, if you can finish it, if you can get that stone up, come to the back door and we'll have some tea and we'll talk about it." I was like, "That's a thing, awesome." Because in Texas, you don't go on someone's land unless you want to get shot. You better knock first and ask, you know. But there's no trespassing laws in Scotland as long as you don't mess with anything, break anything, or do any vandalism. You can walk straight through someone's property and there's nothing they can do about it. I can't remember the actual name for it, but in
Yeah,
Texas, you
Wanderers'
don't.
Rights or something?
Yeah, Wanderer's Rights. That's what it
Yeah.
was. You don't have that in Texas. The private property is private property by gun law. It's crazy. So having that nervousness of like jumping a wire fence to go to the Fianna Stone, and then like going to each of these parts, like going to a castle, and then like, asking the lady at the front desk to pick up a rock out front, like it was really like nerve wracking for me. And then going to this lovely lady's house, knocking on her front door, and then being 6.5 foot tall me shadowing over this little lady, like, "Ma'am, is it okay if I pick up your Inver Stone?" She's like, "Yeah, of course. Yeah, when you're done, go to the back door. We'll have some tea and cookies, and we'll talk, or tea and whatever she said, and we'll talk about it." I was like, "Well, that's kind of cool. I didn't realize that was going to be a thing. I was just going to pick it up and leave you alone." So finish like you walk up to that stone. It was actually rolled up into her garden in between two of her rose bushes, and yeah, so getting it out from there into this gravel area, and I was so scared of dropping it because I was exhausted after 2 days of travel and all those other stones, and I'm literally like the blood's coming through the tape of my forearms. I'm like, I really don't want to leave my blood on this stone, so got it to my lap, got on top of it, brought it to my chest. I thought about rolling it to my shoulder, but didn't want to take the chance of it dumping and being that guy because like the very first stone I touched again was one that wasn't right because it wasn't the right stone. The Wallace stone got broken. So this
Yes.
entire trip, I'm like, don't drop the stones, right? So
Yeah.
I didn't. I chested it, brought it back down safely, and put it on the floor, put it back in position, and get around to the back of the house. I'm going to this woman's backyard, and I'm like, again, not knowing that that's totally okay. Her saying to go do this, I knock on the glass door. She slides it open, and we sit and talk with her for about 30 minutes, having tea, and she's the hilarious moment. She's like, "Yeah, I mean, we've had a bunch of people come through here. A lot of guys your size, really big dudes. And I had this one lady. She used to live in that house down the road. Her name was Diane." I'm like, "Princess Diana?" She's like, "Yeah, yeah. She's such a lovely lady." I'm like, "What's that?" This lovely young lady that lives in the house, which is a castle down the road, right? It's just a funny moment that she's just like, "Yeah, this lovely young lady used to come, like, came by one point. Her name's Diana." I'm like, that's Princess Diana. Like, that's not just some lady. Anyway, so that was one of the cooler moments, getting to sign that ledger that she had in her living room for only successful lifters, and like seeing like flipping back to all the really well known names. And even like I actually share a page with one of my good friends, the same friend that went to Iceland with me. He came to Scotland a month after me. He was on the same page as me on June's ledger. So we
Mm.
shared the same page on about I think a month and a half apart from each other. So that's probably my favorite stone lift so far.
Yeah, and honestly, like between the Ginnies and the Inver, these are what I'm finding are folks' favorite stones. And that I love that Inver story about Diana though. I think that's tops. So you kind of hinted on something else that I wanted to ask you about. And that history, the preservation, the stories that go along, and how, as you as a fabricator or we as promoters and even athletes for that matter, or what role should we play in that the conservation and the historic kind of storytelling and the keepers of the history? Because I think that that's one gap presently, where people see stone must lift, and there isn't the real knowledge behind why stones and that history and the origin of them. What are your thoughts on our roles as conveners and you as a fabricator?
If we're discussing the knowledge of the history of the historic stones in those lifts, I think so far, as far as like where you can find information about them, liftingstones.org, the former old man of the Stones. God, I hope he comes back with his website because it
Yeah.
was second to none. I hate that that was happening to him. And I truly hope Mr. Graham does decide to bring that wealth of information back to our community. I think liftingstones.org is recently at the top of their website, like, this is stone etiquette. Like, do this first, know this, lift correctly, show respect to the people that are taking care of the stones. I feel like if everywhere you try to research for these stones, you find a don't be an asshole at the top of it.
Mhm.
And that is the simplest form of safeguarding up front any bad actors with the stones, and also giving some knowledge as that's what I loved about Old Man of the Stone. It wasn't just the rock, it was a picture, it was the location, the weight, the story about how it was found by Mr. Martin or Mr. Jansix, any number of like how it was found or what research they found, what story, and then where and what clan and what it was used for back in the day. It was this full encyclopedia of why this thing is considered a monument to the stonelifting community and the area it's around. And I feel like we lost that when by whoever it was that was being negative towards Mr. Graham. But we can, as long as we lead with an expectation of kindness and respect with the stones, that's really the only thing we can do is that, because like I said earlier, with any congregate of humans, there's going to be a percentage of assholes. And either ignorant or purposely ignorant, there's going to be a couple of them. Right? Every 100 people, there's going to be at least two, you know? But if the conversation is always upfront with leading with respect for what the history of the stone is, that expectation will spread faster than an uncommunicated hope, because that's how you get heartache. If your expectation without communication is pre-planned heartache. So communicating that throughout the community, no matter what we're discussing, whatever stone it is, bringing the stone back to its resting place correctly with proper. If you're strong enough to shoulder it, you're strong enough to bring it back down. Eccentrics are always stronger than concentrics. So showing your strength isn't tossing it off your shoulder. It's, I'm so damn strong, I'm going to kiss this thing before it touches the floor. Every stone I've ever lifted, I give it a love pat and thank it, and then I walk away. Like, if you look back, if you go to my obviously scroll back a while, because it's been a while since I've picked up any historic stones, you'll see me pat it and thank it at the end, because that's a history that I'm truly trying to not really be a part of, but to know more about because of the lift that I just did myself. So if our expectation is kindness and respect, we have to lead with that, with communication, not just hope.
Well, I'm stealing that little ceremony at the end of the stone lift. I think it's excellent for uh the future of stone lifting to, demonstrate that respect. Obviously, working on the eccentrics is key. Uh, but speaking about the future, I was wondering what you hope that Sticks and Stones, like how it fits into the future of strength culture, because you've really made quite the presence over the last number of years.
Uh, Weirdly enough, the quote from Gladiator comes to mind: "Shadows and dust."
Hmm.
Whatever I am remembered for, it is not going to bother me either way, because I won't be here. But the day I leave this earth, I hope I'm remembered for leading with kindness and respect and making sure those around me were doing it as well. And in the sport, just generally, I hope this logo is remembered for making some cool stuff that I hope some grandma 40 years from now is points at a picture on her mantle. Grandma used to be a badass. See that thing I'm carrying? And it's got my logo in the bottom corner. That's the only gift I can give to somebody doing this. I'm third generation away from a lot of people in the country that are picking up things of mine that I'm never probably going to meet in person. But I hope one day they have a picture, a scrapbook. They're flipping through some kind of tablet and the picture pops up of them just jacked as hell as a 22-year-old. And like, oh yeah, grandpa used to do some thing called strongman. This is this thing that, oh yeah, Stix and Stone made that. And then remembered fondly for that really cool piece that they probably would never have seen if it wasn't for the promoter trusting me and me believing in myself to do something crazy with wood, steel, and concrete, and then it coming to fruition and then being able to carry it, lift it, press it in their competition, no matter what level it is, parking lot to World's Strongest Man. That picture, that memory that I'll never even know about, I hope that flash happens for somebody 20, 40, 60 years from now.
And I guarantee it's going to. And I have you up there with Slater. Like that is where I know that he's got lots of years doing that, but you are like this is when I actually touched one of the like the Husafel stone or what have you. That's what you are akin to me. When I touched my first Slater log, the unbelievable experience. And if you haven't, it might sound a little corny, but if you haven't lifted a Slater log, you haven't lifted a log in my view. And again, I don't know. Do you do logs as well?
I've made a really crappy one 20 years ago for myself, and I made two really cool ones for Strongest Man on Earth this year.
Strongest family, yeah. So you know what I'm talking about, right? Like it's an experience. And I got to do that in front of Magnus for Magnuson and Sam Beliveau, and it was the most amazing experience. So that's where you are in my eyes, and I'm sure many others, but you are also one of the kindest human beings that I've had a chance to talk to and to get to know through other people. And uh, everybody has just
Glad they lied
amazing
about me.
things. No, they do have amazing things to say to you. And what struck me most about this conversation was humility, you're down to earth, but your ability to make connections and maintain them. And this is how we usually end off the episode is I ask for 3 pieces of advice. Do you have any pieces of advice that folks can walk away with, whether it be related to stone or if they want to give their hand at fabrication or what have you?
I think every strongman should have, and even stone lifter should have one piece of self-made equipment. Like it could be a deadlift wedge that helps you get your plates off the ground when you're deadlifting. It could be a ring you bought online, but you created it with your own weight pin that you made out of PVC pipe. Whatever it is, there should be at least one thing that you create that you can find useful and have a deep-seated appreciation for the work that went into it. Because getting the gold medal at the end of the comp or lifting the stone at that day isn't nearly as gratifying as the process it went into getting to that, because you're a different person from day 0 to the day of the lift or the day of the competition. So in that process of making, building, lifting weights and getting stronger, take heed in that process of the build, not just focusing on the end goal. Because if you're only focused on getting your gold medal or only getting the lift, you're going to end up unfulfilled at the end because it is only a medal. It is only a lift. At the end of that, take stock in the process that got you there so that you truly feel proud of what you've done.
Yes. See, talking about fabrication, I like that idea because I've fabricated my own walking stones and bought the very
I
expensive
saw the pictures and
DeWalt.
videos. It look good, man.
But
Those are awesome.
my next one, and you and I have been chatting about this, and again, like I've reached out to like around the world to get advice on this. But my next big one is Matthew Stones, and I am doing that myself. And they're the big chunk rocks with the
The chain in between.
chain in between, and I have hand fabricated chain, and yeah, it's been really exciting. And the pictures for that event are gonna like kick ass. Like there's there's so it's such an awful event. And I think honestly, if I can pitch something to you, Matthew Stoltz, I don't know how you would make it for all of the weight classes, it would probably be
It'd be
really
horrible.
hard. It'd be out, and the dropping and all of that. It would be bad, but it would look epic. It would look epic.
Have you reached out to Matt Stone Jones,
Yeah.
Chloe's?
Yes, because
That's who it's named after.
yes, and Stone Beetle, I've reached out to him because
Yeah.
he helped fabricate them.
Yeah.
And so him and I have been chatting. I'm gonna have him on the show in
Oh, good.
beginning of next, yeah. And yeah, I have peppered him with so many questions. And I mean the big purchase, obviously, for me is the drill. But it was so worth it's so worth it because some folks, as you know, like when you're drilling into the stones, if you don't have the specific like stone drill, it takes hours. 5 minutes. 5 minutes and you've got it to the depth that you need. And it's one of the best pieces of stone equipment that I've gotten. So if people listening in the Ontario area have stones they need drilled, please message me because I will bring your stones to me and I will drill them for you. No problem. Okay. So
For a rental fee, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Third piece of and final piece of advice.
Be kind. Know that everybody that comes in your path is going to have a different perception of the world than you,
Mhm.
because we've all had a different experience of the years leading up to that meeting. Me and you could see the same color yellow, and you might love it because your grandma rocked you to sleep in a yellow sweatshirt every night. I might hate it because the color yellow was the across town rivals high school color. We have the same color in our eyes that we're looking at, but we have a totally different expression of what our feelings are based on the experiences leading up to that moment. So know that that difference is there no matter who you're talking to, and lead with kindness first.
Incredible. That's a carryover from Kiki's conversation because, and this is what
Oh,
I'm,
there you go.
yeah, like what I'm loving about the podcast is getting this window into people's lives. And I didn't know all of the things that Kiki has been through to become the amazing woman that she is. Like she has battled so many different personal
Yes.
things, health wise. And I just sat there and was like, we don't know. We do not know what people are going through. Even myself here who acts happy and joyful, and which I am, but you don't know what's going, behind the curtain in somebody's life. And I think
Yep.
being compassionate, being kind, and maybe leading with a positive mindset of um kind of curiosity rather than victimhood is something I would add to to your advice, in that we often take it things like personally when most of the time people are really not thinking or doing anything to us.
What's the Ted Lasso quote? Lead with curiosity, not judgment.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
And exactly. And I've had to retrain my brain to do that. Oh my gosh, David, this has been phenomenal. I have loved this conversation so much. And the one question actually I didn't ask you was, were you into fabricate like did you know how to do fabrication and cement and all of this stuff before you started this?
So I am the son of a electrical engineer,
Okay.
and his father, my grandfather, was a sugarcane farmer in Louisiana.
Okay.
So I've spent all my summers growing up either on a sugarcane farm, learning to weld, fix, break, fix again, or I've been building in a workshop with wood and steel and concrete with my dad and my mother's father as well at his farm in North Louisiana.
Okay.
I spent my entire life learning from engineers and farmers on how to make something way too strong and really ugly. I've only just recently gotten better at making them a little less ugly.
No, they're gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. So I love the work that you're doing, David, and what Sticks and Stone represents. What I knew before having this podcast, and the ethos that you have shared with us today. It shows us kind of something important that I think progress and promotion in the stone lifting community, as well as preservation, they don't have to be enemies, essentially, and that fabrication can form somewhat of a stewardship and allow access to coexist with the same reverence that we have for our historic stones. And I am super excited to see whatever this is to your left that you're working on, your secret project. And and when does that get revealed?
Well, I'll be getting these packed up next week and shipped
Okay.
off. So hopefully within the next month or so, there'll be a post on my Instagram about what's happened. So it's nothing crazy. It's a small thing. It's nothing. They haven't announced it, so I can't announce it yet.
Of
So
course, of course. So we'll stay tuned for that. But thank you for your work that you do, the care and the commitment that you have to carrying the tradition forward. So for everyone
gladly.
listening, as David had said earlier in the episode, continue to lift respectfully, lift well, and subscribe and like if you get a chance to. Thanks so much, David. Have an amazing
Thank
day.
you for having me. You
Take
too.
care. Bye.